everybody for joining us here today. And it's an interesting week for AWS, running a webinar from the 7th to the 11th of December. I encourage you guys to have a look at the rest of the webinars throughout the week. Really interesting stuff that we're going to be presenting to you guys today. And as Chris mentioned, we got a chat window for you guys. We've got a panel of experts to help out for any questions you have. Right, let's get on. So with the webinar week, it's a week-long webinar series that provides an ideal learning platform designed for anybody looking to leverage the AWS cloud and build their business. We encourage you to ask any questions during the webinar, and please help us improve the program by completing the survey at the end of the webinar. It's really important for us to get your feedback because it means a lot and it's how we drive the excellence, so thank you for that. So as Chris mentioned, my name is Pierre Liddell. I'm the Senior Technical Account Manager working out of Sydney and working with our enterprise customers to secure their business. And hopefully today I can impart some knowledge with you guys and you take away some learnings from today. What I actually want to focus on today, and some of the top reasons is why you should be attending, is looking at how we manage securities in AWS. It is our #1 priority. It's at the top rank, and it's primarily because the main focus is for us to protect your data. Today we're going to learn how to protect your investment, because fundamentally a lot of you are going to be making a journey to the cloud, make a substantial investment, and we have a key set of services to help you protect that investment. We also want you to become familiar with the new AWS services. So there's a lot of enhancements that have happened over the last couple of weeks. We're going to be taking a look at some new features and new services that have been addressed. And when you look at the complete set of services that AWS offer, you can build security in a lot of components and in and around a lot of your workloads for your environment. But it's also key and also important to note that we have so many security services to offer. It's important to choose the right particular security service to protect your particular workload. And that is how you're going to actually reduce and mitigate risk within your particular workload. So for today's journey, we're going to have a look at the new features within AWS CloudTrail, using server-side encryption with KMS, also looking at bringing your own keys for providing encryption, also the log file integrity validation component. We're going to step through IAM Policy Simulator because we have new resource level permissions available in Policy Simulator. And what I particularly love is looking at how to build a secure design component for your particular workloads that is reusable and available for anybody that's going to be building on your platform. And with that, after looking at the secure by design assurance approach, we're going to be stepping into the web application firewall, having a look at what it means and how you can use that within your environment. Then we'll move on to Inspector on how to look and analyze vulnerabilities on your particular instances. And then lastly, looking at config rules, how that complements config and provides you assurance within your organization. I could talk about security all day, but I felt it was important that these particular services being new, there's a lot of activity around this, and this is what we're going to be focusing on today. So let's move on. Then on to AWS CloudTrail. So we're first going to have a look at the encryption with CloudTrail integration with S3. And before we move into the actual details of that new feature, so I just wanted to recap around what actually is CloudTrail. I'm taking the approach is if you haven't seen AWS, you don't know what our particular security services are, CloudTrail is a key component around delivering assurance and an audit trail within your particular environment. So with CloudTrail, you can identify, if you look at from left to right around the, from left to right on that screen, the CloudTrail will give you the audit trail on who made a particular API call, when that API call was made, what was that particular API call that was made, which resources were acted upon in that particular API call, and where was the API call made from and made to, most importantly. So you've got the user, the action they created, or performed the particular time in which that action took place. So you can actually go ahead and configure CloudTrail to deliver log files to all of your AWS accounts into one S3 bucket. So we operate in multiple regions, and through those you can bring all your CloudTrail events into a particular unique bucket to make an analysis and verification easier for you. You can use the log files to perform security analysis and detect user behavior patterns, which is often great and gives you visibility into your environment and your particular workload. We often hear there's a lot of challenges around I need to be able to see more within my particular environment. So CloudTrail is a good starting point, and I often advise when working with enterprise customers and customers, I mean, in general, if there's anything you want to start enabling within your account, it's enabling CloudTrail in every particular region in your in and around your account. Although you might not be operating in a particular region, it's important to have CloudTrail enabled for those regions so you can see if there's any activity on a particular resource or new resource being spun up or spun down in that region, so you can get visibility. Just because you might not choose to operate in a particular region, you want to be able to analyze events within your accounts across the globe. CloudTrail can help you get that visibility and analyze activity. So with CloudTrail, you can also track changes to your resources, so tracking creation, modifications, deletion of AWS resources. All those API calls that are made are actually tracked and logged within CloudTrail for ease of visibility. You can also identify the most recent actions made to particular resources within your own account. We actually have quite a unique white paper. It's called Logging in AWS, and it's talking about security at scale and how to tackle logging. So I encourage you all, if you have the opportunity, have a look at the white paper, Logging AWS. Hopefully that will give you some insights as well on best practices. So I spoke about the regions, and I want to take a look quickly around the options that you have. So you might operate in one region, a multi-region. In all of our regions would be fantastic. CloudTrail availability covers all the particular regions that you would operate in. So you don't have to worry about if you're going to be spinning up instances in a region. You won't be able to see what's happening. CloudTrail takes care of that for you. But it's up to you. Go ahead and enable CloudTrail login for yourself to give yourself that visibility across those particular regions. So we have regions availability in North America, South America, in EU, Asia Pacific, and Sydney. I have to call it out, fantastic region. So yeah, to make the effort. It's easy to enable CloudTrail for your account in every region. It gives you great visibility. So let's have a look at the new feature that's come aboard about within CloudTrail. But what I want to mention, CloudTrail by default encrypts log files to S3 natively. So already by default, we're taking care of that for you behind the scenes. CloudTrail to S3 integration. You don't have to do anything to enable that encryption between CloudTrail and S3. We take care of that for yourself. But if you so choose to want it, and you wanted to, you have the option now to use your own KMS key ID to protect that data. So the application logic for ingestion and processing log files stays the same. You don't have to change anything from your side. This is just an additional layer of security on your log files. The decryption will happen all by itself. You don't have to worry about doing anything else. It's one of those key services for us because we understand how important your data is to you. So now we're now providing an additional layer for you to choose your own keys when using KMS. So this is a new feature within CloudTrail, and I think it's really, really unique and great. The other component that we spoke around that is available within CloudTrail is log validation. So this is important. You want to be able to verify that the logs that you write into S3 are valid, they're there, they as per the instruction, the API calls. It's your audit trail. You need to have a level of assurance that the information is as accurate as it should be. So with log file validation, we're going to actually ingest the hash with a particular log file. So if you look at the screen here where we have the log file prefix, and I've put a red border around the location. So where it says CloudTrail, the difference you're going to see now, once you've enabled log file validation, the other component will be the path would change to log trail-digest. So we're going to be giving you guys a digest of the logs that go into your buckets. And then you can use the command line to go and verify and validate that the digest and the log files match. And if at any point in time the log files don't match, you'll be able to report an error. So you can use CloudTrail, validate logs, check, add the trail ARN. In there, specify your time, just start time and your end time that you want to validate for, and then we'll return that via the CLI or the API call, and you'll be able to verify the amount of digest files that were validated as well as the amount of log files that were validated, giving you that level of assurance that those API calls are protected. Not only are they encrypted, but now we're giving you log file validation that everything is sound and secure. I think it's a fantastic opportunity to work with your auditors and provide them great information and insights into how you're protecting your own personal data. Fantastic. So all you need to do in the CloudTrail configuration, where you've chosen your own custom key, just below that you can enable log file validation. Simple, you don't have to worry about anything else. We're going to ingest the data and it's going to be readily available for you in your bucket. Okay, so there was CloudTrail. The other new feature set I want to be able to share with you guys is IAM Policy Simulator. So basically, Policy Simulator evaluates your policies that you choose, and you determine the effective permissions for each of the actions that you specify within policy. The simulator uses the same policy evaluation engine that is actually used during real requests to AWS services. The difference is that the simulator does not make actual AWS service requests, much like a live API call would. So you can safely test requests that might make unwanted changes to your live environment with minimal risk, because now it's in a contained environment. It's not actually hitting the API, but it's simulating the behavior and the action, giving you accuracy around is the policy and the permission that I'm applying, is it sufficient and is it accurate? Is the desired result what I'm anticipating? So because that policy simulator does not simulate running the selected actions, it cannot report any responses to the simulated request. The only result that's going to actually be returned is whether requested action would be allowed or denied. Because we are simulating, we cannot return an API response from that particular action. Right. So, testing and troubleshooting the IAM and resource-based policies. So you can test which actions are allowed or denied by selected policies or specific resources, and we'll take a look at that. Test new policies that are not yet attached to a user, a group, or a role. So these policies that we're speaking about are actually going to come from your IAM console. You would go and define the actual policy that you want to build and use within your particular environment, and then you'd use the policy simulator to pull up those policies and actually run through the test. You test those policies with selected services, the actions and the resources, and we have a multitude of those services that are in the policy simulator. And you can actually simulate real-world scenarios by providing context keys, your IP addresses or your dates. All the conditional elements in your policies can be tested there. You can identify which specific statement in a policy results in allowing or denying access to a particular resource or action. Now, I know that's a lot of information if you haven't seen the policy simulator, so I thought it relevant. Let's step into the policy simulator and actually take a look at what it actually means. So here I've opened up policy simulator. On the left-hand side, you can see I've chosen a policy that I configured called the webinar week, making it relevant. And you can actually go ahead and choose which particular resource using policy simulator you want to test the policy against. So you've defined the permissions in the policy, and now you want to be able to test it against a particular resource. So having a look at the particular policy that I chose, and I've highlighted in red there the actions that don't support resource level permissions and the actions that do support resource level permissions. So you won't be able to test that running a describe for resources, but you can test it for running instances, terminating, stopping, and starting. And these are more impactful to your particular environment and your workloads if the wrong permissions has been applied to a particular user when they shouldn't be. So, developer having access to production workloads or whatever the particular scenario might be in your environment, making sure that you can test a particular action for the particular policy and the particular user. So that's just showing you what exactly the policy looks like. If we look inside the policy simulator, I've highlighted there in red again. So I've chosen EC2, and I've chosen the various actions, again, EC2 that I wanted to run the test against. And then on the right-hand side by the blue button, you choose Run Simulation. So the simulation is going to take the policy against a particular resource for those particular actions, runs the simulations. It's not impactful to your production environment. It is just a simulation. And then what happens, we give you a report around the permissions that were applied on that particular policy and whether they were effective or not. And we take a look inside. I've just highlighted the first two, opening up the start instance for the first matching rule. And you can see the instance ARN there. Obviously, I've blacked out my account number, but you specify the ARN. I've specified a resource tag, and I was testing on my inspector instance. So there I've got the necessary permissions on that particular resource. But what's important to note is if you leave the condition key empty, then that key is ignored during the simulation, and that's why you're seeing there different results from previously. In some cases, the result is an error and the simulation fails to run. So in other cases, the simulation runs, but the result might not be reliable because the simulation does not match the real-world condition that is included in the value of that condition key. So important to note, if you're choosing particular actions, populate those conditions to get more accurate simulation results for your particular policy that you want to test. Okay, let's move on through to secure by design. I believe this is really where it starts getting interesting. We're bringing everything together, and there's a lot of key components. So we've covered CloudTrail, enabling the encryption, looking at the log file validation, looking at the IAM policy simulator, all key components when you're starting to build security in and around your particular workloads. But Secure by Design brings it all together, because if you get the design right, then you aren't going to be in a position where you're going to retrospectively go and fit security in and use, bubblegum or press stick, as I would say, to go and secure your environment. 80% of the effort getting the design right, and then you can utilize that blueprint, and anybody else in your particular organization that's consuming your blueprint doesn't have to worry about the key security services that you're going to incorporate. So Secure by Design was an actual security, more of an assurance approach. Other than, this is a new technology. It's a process. It's around getting security built in from the start of the project, and you can look at how you design your accounts, the automation, your controls. It's really going to streamline your auditing if you get this right. And that's why I say it's important that you can build security in everywhere, but you've got to consider the design elements. So Security by Design encompasses 4 phases of approach of security and compliance. And it covers multiple industries, a lot of expertise around why this approach was particularly necessary. But there's 2 key components around the aspects of AWS security. So there's the security of your AWS environment, and then the security of your hosts and applications. Now, the security of your AWS environment, the AWS account itself has configurations and features that you can use to build in security, identities, logging functions, encryption functions, rules around how the systems are used, and network are all part of that environment that you manage. So when you look at the security of the host and applications, that's the operating systems, the databases stored on the disk, the applications you manage, all need security protection as well. This is up to you, and this is how you can manage that. You use security processes, the tools and the techniques, which you use today are the same as your on-premise environment, but they also exist within AWS. So we're giving you that capability to build security in your cloud workloads. So your Secure by Design approach here applies primarily to the AWS environment. It's centralized access, gives you visibility and transparency of your operating systems and AWS cloud providers for increasing your capability and designing end-to-end security for all the services, the data, and the applications within AWS. This is probably the most important aspect if you're designing particular workloads, is getting the design approach built in from the start of your particular designs. So I mentioned that there's 4 phases of the Secure by Design approach. We recommend building in security and compliance into your AWS account by following these four phases. So when we talk about phase 1, the particular requirements, this is where you outline your policies. You document the controls you inherit from AWS. You document the controls you own and operate in your AWS environment, and decide on what security rules you want to enforce in your IT environment. So we're going to give you the control, much like we do with all our services, but it's up to you to decide how you want to best utilize those services. So looking at the particular risk, looking at the particular attack vectors, where the risks are coming from, what is it that you're actually trying to mitigate against, and then looking at the appropriate controls that you can use to reduce that particular risk. So you document that, you understand what your requirements are in that phase 1. For the phase 2, you bring those requirements in to build the actual goal environment. This is what one of the niceties around the Secure by Design approach is that AWS has goal-based templates to help you. These templates that provide security rules that conform to multiple security frameworks, PCI, HIPAA, there's quite a broad range of templates that are available for you to help you build that golden environment. Then once you've defined that in golden environment that's built from your requirements definition in phase 1, you move on to phase 3, which is your service catalog. And this is where you actually enforce the use of these templates in the catalog. This is a step which enforces the use of your golden environment in new environments that are being created and prevents anyone from creating the environment that doesn't adhere to your golden environment. You don't want people to go and deploy or give them free reign into particular workloads or into your VPCs or your environment, because it's going to be very difficult to control the attack vectors that are going to be becoming available within your environment. Rather, specifically when you work in a production context, rather build that golden environment, decide what it is that you want in that golden environment. If it's particular data governance, build it in, let the people use templates to go ahead and deploy that. So that's when you're moving on to phase 4, which is that the validation aspect. You deploy those key templates through the service catalog and the gold environment templates, and create an audit-ready environment that you know was built from good, trusted requirements, adhering to your corporate policies. Then the rules you define in your templates can be used as an audit guide. So this was the requirement X, we built it into the template, we can now provision according to that requirement, and we can audit against that particular requirement. So AWS config allows you to capture the current state of your environment, which can then be compared to your golden environment rules. And that's why today I've chosen these particular services, because they all fit into each other very nicely around how you can build security into your environment. So phase 4 that provides the audit evidence, the gathering capabilities through like secure read access permissions, along with unique scripts with enable audit automation for evidence collection, which is going to be very, very important and providing you a level of assurance for your particular environment. So 4-phase approach, broken it down into simple aspects, the requirements, building a golden environment, publishing that golden environment in templates by a service catalog, and then using those requirements to validate against your organization what your blueprint should look like. So I've chose one particular phase in the 4-phase approach because I felt that was really relevant, because you might gather requirements from your organization to understand what your compliance requirements are, what the security requirements are. But in the phase 2 approach, it's important to look at, within AWS, we have S3, we have EBS, and we have Redshift, and this is just an example. You can choose the particular requirement within that service. So if you look at S3, you can turn on logging, you can have Glacier archiving, which is available for you. You can set event notifications. There's a lot you can do within S3. You want to enable bucket logging. You want to do server-side encryption. There's a tremendous amount you can do natively within S3. It's about using that to build it into a template, so you don't have to worry about somebody deviating from your business requirements on your compliance requirements. So with any EBS, as an example, you can define the volume type, the volume size, the amount of IOPS for that particular volume. You can do snapshots. You can choose the particular locations and the regions, also specifically the encryption requirements. So how are you going to encrypt it? Are you going to be able to snapshot it? What's the life cycle of that? So all these things come into play, because if you've got a live volume and you're encrypting it and you're creating snapshots, what are you doing to protect that data? Where's it going? Where's it moving? Understand the risk where that data moves through your particular environment. And if you look at Redshift, looking at the KMS or HSM integration with it, choosing your particular encryption requirement, the VPC location that you want to choose, using your security groups, which is great. Are they applied? Are they correct? Are they too permissive? Creating the SNS topping notifications, and also you want to be able to enforce CloudWatch alarms for specific events or metrics that you're busy monitoring for. So phase 2, we're not going to be breaking down into every single phase, but I think phase 2 is particularly the most important. It's bringing your business requirements around security and governance, looking at the AWS capabilities, and defining that template that is going to be best suited for your particular workload against your particular requirements. Fantastic. Okay, so let's move on. So the secure by design impact. So there's white papers available with secure by design, and the secure by design approach is basically establishing reliable operations of controls for your environment, enabling continuous and real-time auditing, because once you've defined that template, you can always audit against a particular template and deviations from that. And you can give the technical scripting of your governance policy. So infrastructure as code is readily available. You've defined it, you've built it against that, and you can monitor. So at the bottom there, we have Intro to AWS Secure by Design, which is a white paper that's available for you. Today you can go online, and I'll show you the links at the end of the presentation today. You can go online and have a look at that. There's also the Intro to AWS Gold Base. This is where all our templates are, and you can use that for your compliance to assist you in building that. And then there's the actual implementation guide. So we've spoken a lot today around, what is a security assurance approach? What does it mean for you and your organization around managing security? I encourage you to go to the Secure by Design website, make a note now. I'll show you the link later on, and have a look at the intro, have a look at the templates that are available, and then look at our implementation guide. And we encourage you, if you have feedback around these particular items, please provide us this feedback. We want to make it relevant for you, and we want to make it useful and easy to adapt and build within your environment. Okay, so we've covered CloudTrail, the IAM policy simulator, the secure by design approach. This is the next three items are particularly of key interest, and there's been a lot of interest around the environment for these. We're going to have a look at next is the web application firewall, which I believe is a key component to securing your environment. So the AWS WAF runs together with CloudFront at every edge location. So it helps protect your web applications from common web exploits that could affect application availability, compromise your security, or even consume excessive resources. That's why you want to have a web application firewall. If you're hosting a public website or website in general on the internet, you want to have a web application firewall to be able to protect you and mitigate you against those cyber threats. So with WAF, you can go ahead and create custom rules to blocking common attack patterns designed specifically for web applications, and you can deploy these rules in minutes globally across all the CloudFront edge locations. You can even filter web requests based on IP addresses, HTTP headers, or URI strings, and we'll actually take a simple walk through an example that I've built for you today. Look at the AWS key features that are available. So AWS WAF makes it easy to create rules that block common web exploits. So we're talking about SQL injection and cross-site scripting. It's very common, very easy to do, but with the WAF you can build your rule set and mitigate against those. So the WAF can be completely administered via APIs, which we believe, and obviously is a key focus for us, that we make that easy for you guys to integrate with. This provides all you guys with the ability to create and maintain rules automatically and incorporate them into your development and design process. Once again, I'm coming back to getting the design element right for your particular environment, building that into your process. So the WAF provides real-time metrics and captures raw requests that include details about IP addresses, geolocations, URIs, user agent strings, and referrer headers. So there's a lot of information that you can use to analyze a particular real-time event. We capture that for you, and we provide you the metrics around what's happening on your web application firewall. So let's look at some of the benefits. So the WAF protects the web applications against real-time cyber threats, SQL injection, cross-site scripting like we've spoken about. You integrate this into your development processes for your developers. Whoever's writing the code, give them, I would encourage you, if you so choose, give the developers access who are writing the web application, because they know how they're going to handle the data, they know how they need to pass the data, and they know if they can't particularly do it in the application space, maybe they can hand off that control or that prevention to the web application firewall. Because if there's a particular gap within the development process, giving them access, they can help mitigate and reduce your attack footprint. So there's also the ease of deployment. So yeah, I mean, we've made this available via API, and you can get real-time visibility once you've gone and built these rules. You can create new rules and alerts within Amazon CloudWatch as well to give you that visibility. And it's really cost-effective, these rules. So how the rule base works is once you've defined a rule, and a rule contains certain conditions, and we'll look at those conditions now, but a rule will cost you $1 a month, and then if you roll rules up into a web ACL will cost you $5 a month. And you can reuse web ACLs for different web applications or different origins that are actually on CloudFront distributed globally. So you define it once and you can reuse it multiple times. So if you look at the web ACL overview, I want to go from left to right here. If you look at the conditions that we have available within WAF, we have IP match conditions, so you can go and specify a particular IP that you want to match against or block. You can do a string condition match, user agent headers. You define if it's a particular user agent that you don't want on your site. It might be a mobile site or particular e-commerce site that you don't want scrapers or crawlers coming through, so you define that particular user agent or in that header, and you can inspect it and decide what you want to do with that particular condition. We also provide SQL injection matching, so you're looking at the URI and the query string. These are all in the header of the particular requests that are coming through. So once you know which condition you want to look at, you build that condition into the rules. So the rules contain your conditions. So in the middle there, you can see there's an IP match condition as well as a string match condition. and then you can go and detect SQL injection match conditions as well. So rolling up multiple conditions into one particular rule, and then you're rolling up the rules into a particular web ACL. So if we look there on the right hand side, we've taken rule 1, which was the bad user agents, and we're going to use that to block malicious IPs, and the string matching condition. And then rule 2, we're going to take detecting the SQL condition and pass that into the same web ACL as rule 1. And then we're going to define the action that we actually want to take place. Do we want to permit it or deny it? Depending on the particular threat or attack vector that you're trying to reduce within your environment. So once again, define the condition, create the condition in the rule, use multiple rules in the web ACL, and then apply your web ACL to your CloudFront origins, and you can reuse the web ACLs across multiple origins globally. And if you're making changes to these rules, and it is available via the API, these rules will propagate within a minute globally across all your CloudFront edge locations. So if there's real-time threats going on, you want to write a custom rule, you go ahead, you define it, and you roll it out to mitigate that particular attack. So if we have a look here, I've created one simple rule just to give an idea on building all of this together. So the ACL name here is webinar demo. The CloudWatch metric name is webinar demo. You specify that so you can actually analyze it later on inside CloudWatch. So I'm going to step through on the left-hand side. If you have a look there, there's 5 steps to building it. So we name the web ACL. In step 2, we're going to create those conditions. So what I've gone ahead and done here, I've said, let's have a look at the header. Inside the header, we'll take the user agent, and we're looking for a particular word, and there's multiple options within the match type. So I've just chosen to match a specific word. The transformation, I'm not going to be manipulating any of the particular data coming through. I want to keep it simple. And then the value to match, I was going to block any user agent that had the word Firefox. It might be because my site doesn't render correctly or effectively on Firefox, and I'd rather just enforce everybody to use Chrome or Safari or Internet Explorer. So I want to be able to block Firefox, or there might be a particular bug or vulnerability that I know guys are using within Firefox. So I define it in the header user agent, and I'm just going to say let's look for Firefox as that agent string. Then once we've defined it, so we've got the name at the top, we've got the CloudWatch metric, which is webinar demo, and we've got the condition. So what do we actually want to do with this? So we're saying when the request does match one of the filters in the string match condition, which we defined, which is in webinar demo. That's what we want to do. When it does match webinar demo, what do we want to do with it? So if you look at, we're on step 3 out of 5 now, where we're creating the rule. We're going to say allow webinar demo, but block all requests that don't match any rules. So you can do an implicit deny at the end of everything, or you can just enable everything else to come through. But it's a safe catch-all, depending on how sensitive your particular workload is. You can say block or allow, it's up to you. So define the condition, put the condition in the rule, create the ACL, and then define what action you want to take on that particular ACL, allow, block, or you just want to count it. So counting is you're going to be putting in passive mode, and you're just getting the metrics and the counters running up for that. So here, once you've built it, you actually need to define where you want to place that ACL on your particular environment. So this resource that I've gone and defined here, this is CloudFront Origin that is integrated within WAF. You don't have to do anything. It's readily available for you. You get that list of resources within the console. You choose this particular ACL, what particular origin you want to be able to protect or integrate with to enable protection. Then on the right-hand side, you're going to click Review and Create once you've stepped through that. And then when you do the review and create, it will bring everything together. So you're going to see your ACL, your metrics that are available, the rule that you've created, the action, which is important, what the default action is. So it's important to understand the rule set and how these compound together, because you might be testing and something's broken. Just remember what your default action is and have a look at what your real-time action is for that particular ACL. Excuse me. And then it shows you lastly at the bottom there the particular resource CloudFront distribution that we've been testing on. So now that you've defined that within AWS WAF, if you move over to the CloudFront console and you look there in the middle of the screen, I'll put a box around it, it shows you the ACL that's actually on this particular origin. So now you can see the integration, and you can reuse that ACL across multiple origins to make life easier for yourself. You don't have to keep building them over and over and over. It's readily available for you. So now, once we've built the ACL, we've integrated with CloudFront. I did a quick snippet there at the bottom. When I did some requests on a 5-minute average, you can see there I was hitting that the web demo ACL. On the right-hand side, there's a blue line in the box there. And above that, you just go and choose a particular ACL that you actually want to be able to report the metrics on. So it'll give you great visibility around what's happening on your particular environment, and you can carry on testing and refining it and looking what's working for you. Fine-tune it to your environment. And I know it can be difficult if you haven't built the web application. That's why I say it's important. Something I've been a strong advocate for coming through security for multiple years is working with the developers, understanding how it is they're going to be working with the data in their particular web application, giving them exposure to understand how they can mitigate vulnerabilities within the web application if there's no alternative means. But ideally, if you're building secure code, that's great. Look at this as an additional layer to protect threats against your particular environment, because it might not be easy to roll out a global config change or code deployment for your web application. If there's a particular attack, with CloudFront and AWS WAF integration, you can define a custom rule and have that deployed globally within minutes, mitigating a global risk on your particular web application. So great application, giving you great insights, easy to adapt and use, and I encourage you to go ahead and test. And once again, if you believe there's improvements around the service, we would love to hear that. Speak to your account representatives, get in touch with us via support, let us know how we can improve the service. It's built for you guys. Okay, what I want to step into now is AWS Inspector. So AWS Inspector is an agent base with deployment, so it's focused on the instance rather than your AWS configuration. So you'll see AWS config and config rules, they're going to look for your AWS configuration. But Inspector will actually look at your instance and the vulnerability and the posture of that particular instance. So you can test your infrastructure and application for potential security issues using AWS Inspector, and provide guidance based on any findings identified. So not only will we give you access to the agent, you run it, you identify particular security issues on your instance, but we're going to give you recommendations on how to go and remediate and resolve those particular findings. You can also choose the policy packages for assessing infrastructure in your applications. So that there's quite a few options, and we're going to step through that as well in the next couple of slides. So that gives you an overview of what Inspector is. So Amazon Inspector actually analyzes your system and the application configuration and monitors system activity to determine what are the dependent components, how are they behaving. You can deploy that agent on virtual servers you want to scan, select the test you want to run, and define how long you actually want to run those tests for and monitor that particular activity. So the combination of this data, it will give you a complete picture of the application and the security or the compliance issues it might be introducing. If you were to take that instance and you're going to go into production environment from dev, you run the Inspector rule set, it comes up with a finding, well, maybe based on the finding, you shouldn't go to production because you're going to increase your risk posture, depending on the particular nature of that particular application. So based on the findings, you might want to go back, look at the particular findings, how you can rather mitigate it before rolling it out into production. So Amazon Inspector, it incorporates a built-in library of security rules and reports. These are predefined checks against best practices and around authentication, network configuration, virtual machine settings, application settings, operating system configurations, the patches. It also checks most common security compliance standards. So if you look at PCI, there's CVE checks that we do that all include detailed recommendations tests for remediating security issues with the environment. This library is constant and it's been updated on a regular basis, so new tests will be emerging, new findings around particular security vulnerabilities. So keep taking Inspector, taking a particular workload, running the assessment on your particular instance, get the findings, and keep on continuously improving your security posture of your environment. You don't have to worry about, we're taking years of AWS security expertise, rolling it up into a service because we know it's in high demand. It's making your life easier, and we want to help you manage your security. We're giving you the capability. You choose when and for how long you want to run this particular service or agent on your machine, and we'll give you the findings that you can take to remediate and get great visibility into your particular environment. So AWS, so what are some of the benefits if we're looking at Inspector? So you can identify those security vulnerabilities as well as deviations from your best practices in the applications. Before it's deployed, after it's deployed, fundamentally improving your overall security posture. So we talk around secure by design, we talk around building security in everywhere. Amazon Inspector is going to help you achieve that. It's going to give you great visibility into your environment. So you can enforce your organization's security standards. So it allows you can define the standards and best practices for your application and validate the applications are adhering to these particular standards that are relevant to your environment. So we have a range of those checks that you can run. Choose the right one and that's appropriate for your particular environment. So we're talking about agility. So you can automate these security assessments of your application and proactively identify security vulnerabilities. So it's on and off. You choose how long you want to run it, on which particular instance you want to run it, giving you great flexibility for that. So the security expertise to your application. So we're constantly assessing the AWS environment, updating the database of security best practices and rules. It takes security expertise and it's taking our security expertise and we've made this available to you guys in the form of a managed service. So it's making it easier for you to establish and enforce the best practices within your AWS environment. This adds to the expertise of your in-house security team, allowing them to provide more value to your organization. So more security services, more capability, make it easier to provide visibility into your environment and remediation steps on how to reduce that risk within your particular environment. So with Amazon Inspector, it gives you security teams and auditors visibility into security testing that is performed when developing these applications on AWS. And you can streamline the process of validating and demonstrating that best practices are being followed in the development environment. So this is a great way. You define it through secure by design approach. You know what it should be looking like. You're running Inspector to validate your compliance. There's CVE checks once again. There's network security checks. There's 4 checks that we're doing there. There's weak ciphers. There's vulnerable TLS versions. There's SMB packet signing that we have available in there. There's authentication checks that we actually run on top of your from the agent on your instance. I mean that's as and when you decide to run it. There's application security checks that we do. There's PCI checks. If I stand corrected, there's 25 PCI checks that we do within your particular environment, and that's a great way for you guys to achieve compliance based on your organizational requirements by using Inspector, validating your instance, your particular workload, and providing your auditors and your compliance teams with that result based on the original requirements defined. So there's an interesting and a key topic that often comes up when we talk about Inspector, and I wanted to give you guys confirmation that AWS Inspector, all the communication runs over HTTPS over TCP, and all the connections are initiated by the agent. At no point in time do we make a call into your environment to make that scan from that agent. So once you deploy the agent makes a call back to that particular DNS service there, and those particular IPs are the ones that you should be whitelisting to make AWS Inspector talk to that endpoint. So you have full control over deploying the agent, defining the schedule, and making those connections to the Inspector service, because once you've defined the particular security scan that you want to do, the agent will call back, find the updates that it needs to run, and then kick off that scan internally. So have a look at your particular network path and access rules, and check if your agent isn't working or isn't running. Have a look that it can get access to that particular DNS server, those relevant IP addresses, and keep checking back on the AWS Inspector service, the website. We might add new IPs, and it might grow. We possibly will. So I encourage you to continuously coming back and having a look at additional IPs that are available for you guys. So we've spoken around Inspector, but one of the key components to be able to get to a point where you can run the agent and get the rule set running on your particular host, you go and you download the agent. So you can just use a wget command, or you can use curl to those particular endpoints to go and grab the installation file, and then to run the agent installation on your particular box, you can just run sudo bash install, and then once the agent's installed, you can actually do a status check on the actual instance. We'll give you a status check, and you can go and define your rule base, and then the Inspector agent will make a call back to that service endpoint and get the configuration that actually needs to run based on what you've gone and defined for that environment. So I want to take you through quickly what the AWS Inspector application might look like. What I've done here, I've created a sample for today. So within the AWS Inspector application, so I know it is under preview. I encourage you guys to go sign up for the preview. Once you've got an access, start experimenting, see what's working for you guys. What more would you like to see? And once again, I'm a big advocate. Give us your feedback, guys. We want to improve the service. We want to make it more relevant for you. We drive a lot of our features around customer feedback. You are what's important to us. We want to hear what you like and what you don't like. So please sign up for the preview, test with it, and give us your feedback. We'd like to improve the service for you guys. So here we've got the AWS Inspector application. So I've created a sample for today called Webinar Demo. And how AWS Inspector works, that it will actually take a look at a particular EC2 instance based on a particular tag. So you tag the instance that you want to run the agent or the application on. You put in the key value pair of use inspector, value yes, and then it will go and identify the particular instance and come back to you for verification. So you can click on the preview button. It will go and do a lookup and report back to you which instance it has found, and you can verify that or refine the tags or include more tags if you want. If you want a bigger pool of applications or instances that you want to run the inspector again, just keep adding them in there, and within the preview it will bring the results and set, and you can make sure that those are the agents or the instances that you actually want to check on. So once you've done that, if we have a look here, we've got the assessment name, which is webinar. We've got the application. So moving down where the red boxes are, so we've got the application. I just called it application demo. You can call it anything you like. So the rule package, what I've gone and done, I said I want to run the authentication best practices on this particular instance, and I want to run it for 1 hour. You can run the rule for 50 minutes. You can run it for an hour. You can run it for longer. The longer you run it, depending on the particular behavior of the instance and the application, the more accurate your findings are going to be. So ideally, when you're running Inspector on your instance, get the application that's on the instance to behave like it would in a production context. So if it's making specific network calls, if it's doing activity to disk, get it to perform like it would in a production environment, because that's going to give you the most accurate assessment of your particular environment. You don't want to be running Inspector on an instance that's dormant doing nothing, because it's going to provide little value to you, but you want to be able to simulate a near production environment to give you that realistic risk posture. So what I've gone and done here, I've defined the webinar application for today. You can see the rule package just above the red box. It's in blue there. It says authentication best practices. I've run it for 1 hour, and I can click show agents and the status, and at the bottom there it will show you the instance, the specific name, the match, the health status of the agent, the ready, and all the messages. So that count there is all the checks and the communications that's been happening between the agent and the endpoint. That'll just give you a quick, good oversight around that. And then these are the findings. So on the left-hand side, right in the top left-hand screen, you can see we have the dashboard. We defined the applications. We looked at the assessment, and this is the final point. We look at the findings of that particular assessment. So there's medium and informational, and I want to step into one of them here. And if you have a look, that first one that we ran, the authentication best practices, for this particular instance, you can see there it's discovered that we're allowing users to log in with root credentials over SSH, which is a big no-no, and a lot of security guys and a lot of security assurance departments and organizations would recommend that you don't permit that. And we provided you recommendations on how to go and modify that. And you can go and take that finding and go back to your design process that we spoke about earlier and update that design process to get more stricter controls around your blueprint. So it's iterative cycle, looking at the findings, going back to the design, and going through the deployment and refining and refining your process. So that was a quick oversight of Inspector. There's one more I want to show you guys for today, and that is AWS config rules. So config rules gives you better control over changes by setting up rules that evaluate configurations recorded. So you define the guidelines for provisioning and configuration. You can monitor compliance with those guidelines and a complete inventory of all resources and their configuration attributes. So AWS config gives you the inventory of your resources. You can discover new and deleted resources with AWS config, and you can record those configuration changes continuously and get notified of those changes. Now, I'm talking about config because config rules is a additional aspect to config, so I want to be able to just give a quick coverage on what config is, and then we're going to look at config rules. So if you look at config, you've got your changing resources that are happening with your particular environment. You're going to get a record of those particular changes. It's going to give you a particular version history of those particular changes. They're going to be stored. We're going to deliver them to you, so there's going to be history available. So this is where you record the details of those changes for those resources to provide you with configuration history. So within the management console, the APIs, the CLIs to obtain these details, what the resource configuration look like at a particular point in time. And then there's a stream. So when a configuration change is made to one of those resources, AWS config delivers that change notification message to the updated configuration and via the SNS topic. So you get that subscribed to, and we'll deliver that notification to SNS for you. Then there's the snapshots which are available. So this provides you the configuration snapshot, which is a point-in-time capture of all your resources and their configuration items. So once again, defining what it is that you want to build, capturing that event, and analyzing and monitoring for deviations from that particular resource or that particular blueprint that you're going to define, that golden master. So let's look at config rules then. So what are some of the key features? So config rules is available to give you increasing your visibility. So you're continuously recording configuration of your resources, you're getting that configuration stream, and when the change is made, we'll deliver that notification to your particular topic. You get the snapshots that are available for you, and it's available via the API of the CLI, and you can get that in your console. Also, what's great with AWS config rules is that it's low cost. So you're looking at 0.003 cents per configuration item recorder, and so you can build multiple configuration items for your particular environment. I want to have a look at the benefits. I want to make sure I get through the rest of the presentation for you guys today before we run out of time. So config rules, just the benefits. It's easy to get started from within the console. There's a dashboard to give you good visuals around the list and the charts for your particular environment, give you continuous monitoring, near real-time view of your AWS resources in your environment, and there's simplified management, giving you, it's easy to navigate the interface to support those compliance audits for you guys. We also have an ecosystem of partners that are available to help you out, and this is going to continuously grow as time moves on. So if you look at AWS config rules, so this was the standard approach. The slide you're seeing now, this is how you looked at AWS config. And if we take that and we move config rules into this equation, you're going to be able to put those checks and balances in place. So is it as we defined it? Are all EC2 instances? Are they in a particular VPC? Are we using the right KMS ID for EBS volumes? Is CloudTrail enabled, like we spoke about previously? What's the security group attachment state on a particular resource? So you'll have all this information available through to you. Excuse me. And then you can get the visual representations, like looking at the particular rule, building the dashboard for you guys and giving you insights into that. So this is the dashboard. Once you've defined what it is you're looking for, we're going to give you access to a dashboard. So it'll show you was CloudTrail enabled or wasn't it? What are the roles, the instance VPCs? So define what it is you're looking for based on your organization requirements, and then come back to the dashboard. So I know we kind of sped up to the last bit, and I wanted to make sure we got through all of the content today because it was very valuable. So if I have to give you a formula for today to building security in everywhere, look at WAF, look at the inspector, look at config rules, and use that secure by design approach to bring all of these elements together. Look at the remaining security services that are available for you guys and build them into your design aspects. So the next steps, what I told you guys that was going to share. So if you go to awsamazon.com, have a look at WAF, the inspector and config, just / WAF inspector and config, compliance, security by design, and then you can look at the goal base, which is our automated reference architecture that I spoke to you guys about, where we have all those white papers and templates available for you. So if you look at the training that's available, we also have security training, which is a 3-hour online course, which is free. So please go ahead, guys, look at the security fundamentals training. The security by operations, that's an instructor-led training. That one is a 3-day cost, technical deep dive on how to secure and be compliant with AWS. I encourage you all to go have a look at those particular training options available. And we have online labs and training, guys, which is available for you. And there's instructor-led classes, and you've put so much effort in. Why not finish up with a great certification on AWS? Make yourself unique in the market. Grab a great certification and yeah, differentiate yourself. So guys, I want to thank you for attending the AWS APAC webinar week. This series around securing your business on AWS. I hope you learned something today. I hope you have something to take away. It's been really insightful. If there's any feedback around the presentation, the particular services that you guys are using, for today you can use the email address aws-apac-marketing@amazon.com. Give us your feedback, guys. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook, on YouTube. These slides will be available for you. Thank you very much for your time today. Much appreciated.